Richard, quite a significant day in Glasgow today because an underworld funeral, essentially, which looks mafia in its style.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the biggest underworld events in recent years in the west of Scotland. Absolutely packed funeral, packed inside, standard room only outside, despite the extremely inclement weather in North Glasgow today. And very impressive, if you can use that word for a funeral. Very big turnout this afternoon.
So where has it happened? And I suppose, tell us a little bit about these two men, Ross Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr., who were together in life and together in death.
Yeah, well, the funeral's taking place at somewhere called Bishop Briggs, which is just outside of North Glasgow, very close to Low Moss Prison. It's very close to where the Lyons family has their base. And it's also the area where a lot of the Daniels family and the Lyons family moved out from North Glasgow, just a couple of miles to Bishop Briggs, suburban area, just on the edge of North Glasgow, as I said.
Now, Monaghan and Eddie Lyons Jr. were shockingly shot together in a bar in Fuengirola at the end of May, and they're significant players in the Scottish underworld, 43 years of age and 46 years of age. So they've been around a long time and more than likely have survived a few scrapes along the way.
Yeah, certainly there's been a couple of attacks on Monaghan in particular. He was shot as he took a young child to primary school a few years ago. He's always been a high-ranking figure in the Lyons family, very close to Eddie Lyons Jr., who was with him when he was shot, and very close to Eddie Lyons' brother, Stephen. Very much a top-ranking member of the Lyons family.
So with Monaghan, who is the leading sort of figure within that Lyons group? And the Lyons, of course, have been linked to and are seen as associates of the Kinahan organisation. So who would be the leading figures in that grouping now?
Stephen Lyons is the head of the Lyons family. His very close friend is Ross Monaghan. Over the past few years, both men have become close to Daniel Kinahan and his associates. They apparently, the group get on well together. They're trusted, and one of the first people to send their condolences were the Kinahans after they heard of this double shooting.
So Stephen Lyons, is he the older brother of Eddie Lyons Jr. or younger?
He's the younger brother.
He's younger. So Stephen Lyons, as the head of this grouping, a very powerful underworld grouping in Scotland linked in with the Kinahan organisation, he's lost his older brother and he's lost his best friend and essentially his number two, his top lieutenant?
Yeah, you could say that, certainly. He's certainly up there. He was certainly up there, Monaghan, on that level.
Okay, so they were shot dead in a bar in Fuengirola, and here the story gets peculiar because the Spanish have insisted that the murders are to do with a long-running feud between the Lyons and the Daniels families in Scotland, and indeed they have sought to extradite a man they say was a hitman working for the Daniel family. But Scottish police are very confident that this is nothing to do with that long-running feud, and it's the probably the answers to it perhaps lie more in Ross Monaghan's activities on the Costa del Sol.
Yeah, very much so. Within 3 days of the shootings occurring, Police Scotland had issued a generic statement saying that they don't have any intelligence or evidence to link it back to Scotland. There was a press conference held by the detective in Spain in charge of the double shooting investigation. and he publicly stated that it was carried out by an internal member of the Daniel crime clan.
Mm.
This led initially to another statement from Police Scotland, from the Assistant Chief Constable. And then about 48 hours after that, the Chief Constable, Joe Farrell, at a meeting of the Scottish Police Authority, said exactly the same. So it's gone from a generic media release to an Assistant Chief Constable to a Chief Constable. They are absolutely adamant that this did not have anything to do with its roots in Scotland.
Okay. So, and clearly their activities around this funeral would tell you a lot as well. I mean, when we had a situation in Dublin where funerals were a flashpoint of possible violence when two sort of clans, powerful clans, had gone to war, the funeral was literally surrounded with the ring of steel. Are you seeing that kind of security there today in Glasgow, or what's that like?
No, it's nothing to the scenes that I saw over in Dublin. It's very, very low key. There was a police presence, a couple of cars. There was a van driving round. Whether that was in connection, don't know. But no, it was very, very low key.
Which is suggesting there is no critical threat to life within Scotland, or certainly Glasgow, around this funeral at all. Because, of course, you know, they will monitor it in the same way they do monitor terrorism threats nowadays in the underworld, and if rows break out within organised crime groupings, because they're so well armed, they're so wealthy, and they're so well able to go to war on the streets. So that is indeed not suggesting that Police Scotland fear that these murders will kick off anything on, you know, in Scotland. Now, there's been rumblings and there's been tit-for-tat attacks to do with those ongoing feuds and sub-feuds within the sort of the schism between the Daniels and the Lyons clans. But had this anything to do with that, this would have been that sort of Regency Hotel moment, wouldn't it?
I would think so. You've got all the people from one side in one place at the same time. I think the fact that at the moment there hasn't been any incident whatsoever, I think that plays into the narrative that it is something that is not connected either to Scotland or certainly the ongoing gang war that is continuing at the moment here.
Mm-hmm. So let's take it to the Costa del Sol and Monahan and Eddie Lyons Jr. Firstly, are they married family men? Were they living out in the Costa at this point, or were they just over and back?
Eddie Lyons Jr. was out on a golfing trip with his pals from his local golf club. Monaghan had closer ties to that part of the world. He had a couple of businesses. He had part ownership of the bar. So he spent more time over there. Eddie Lyons was much more of a family man back here.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the fact he went over to see his pal, and it was coincided with this golfing trip with his mates.
So again, which will suggest that Monaghan was the clear target of this attack, and Eddie Lyons Jr. perhaps was either collateral damage or taken out just because, you know, he was there at the time. But do you know anything, or is there any information on what sort of activities that Monaghan was getting up to in the Costa? And I'm not asking you that completely naive. I mean, these are drug gangs. They're supplying vast amount of drugs and possibly weapons into Scotland and beyond. But is he out there trying to make alliances on behalf of the Lyons grouping? Is he there trying to muscle in on somebody else? Had there been any suggestion what Monaghan was up to in the run up to this shooting?
I don't think he was trying to muscle in. I'd be very surprised if that was the case, because by all accounts he was a very savvy individual. Also, the fact that he's so well connected with the Kinahans, you know, I don't have to tell you, Nicola, what that means in those terms. I think the fact he was out there, he's obviously trying to find new contacts, new routes, new ideas. As I said to you last time, there was talk that him and Stephen Lyons may have been involved in some of the funding for the cocaine, which was seized on the MV Matthew. I see those guys have got done today. But certainly, I don't think he was trying to make his own way and cut other people off. I think, if anything, he would be working on behalf of the Lions.
Mm-hmm. Grouping as a representative in Spain. It's interesting, over the years, really, with the dismantling of the Kinahan organisation. While they are still a powerful global entity and they're still obviously attempting to ship cocaine across the world, they lost their power base, certainly in Ireland. And we then later saw in the UK with the dismantling of Thomas Bomber Kavanagh's operation. And that did cause, had a ripple effect into violence in the criminal underworld, because, of course, there were still those who were trying to use the name of the Kinahans in Ireland in certain locations, as that umbrella protection it used to be, and everybody used to be feared of them. But sort of more ambitious groupings did move in and all of a sudden realise, well, the Kinahans don't have the same power on these shores as they used to. And I'm wondering, is it, has that rippled down to the Costa del Sol, where they're gone a long time now? I mean, they are out of the Costa since 2016. So you're coming up to a decade since they're out of there. They certainly have left representatives behind, and they're certainly doing wholesale business with plenty of groupings down there. But you would wonder, does the name still hold sway, or as much fear as it once used to?
I think from UK standard, it does, yes. I mean, obviously, you've got the Moroccans who have been well established in that part of the world for years. You've got the Albanians operating out of Ecuador, sending over. It's very fluid, as you know, Nicola. This is a market that, if you get off the roundabout, it's very difficult to get back on. So I think the idea of Monaghan just keeping an eye on things, seeing what's new, what trends are coming up, I think that fits in with what was behind this.
And I suppose finally, Richard, for the moment, and we will return to this when we have some further information about what theories there are in existence about these double murders. But like, for two significant characters to die at the same time in such circumstances, we can undoubtedly say there will be repercussions for this. Their deaths will be avenged, and will have to be, by the Lions mob, because otherwise they lose their power completely if they aren't seen to hit back at this. Where they hit back will be of interest to us. But in the meantime, the use of social media has been so significant in the localised fighting within Glasgow, perhaps, and even the more high-end and, not as instantly solvable murders that happen in that sort of more murky underworld where business deals are done. But is there social media coming out of that funeral, or does it look as if there's been a ban on that?
At the moment, there doesn't appear to be anything from the funeral. There was, at the beginning of the week, an anonymous online post threatening people who were thinking of attending the funeral. But as you know, anybody can be a keyboard warrior.
For sure.
That was the only threat that was made in relation to this service today. From what I'm seeing or what I'm not seeing so far, there hasn't been any social media reaction to today's funerals.
Well, look, we'll regather in the next week or two as the dust begins to settle, literally, and sometimes it can be after the funeral that things will become clearer, what may or may not have happened. It's a mystery, Richard, I have to say. It's always easy to look at these stories and say, okay, this group are feuding with this, so therefore they did that to them. But to take out two characters as significant as as Lyons and Monaghan together on the Costa del Sol. Takes a very powerful entity to make that decision and carry it through. So I think the information probably and will filter down as the weeks go on, and we may start to begin to see a clearer picture as the dust settles on these funerals.
I think that's absolutely spot on. It's more than likely people are going to sit back, assess the situation, let things calm down, and then use an opportunity when the heat isn't on to strike back, because, as you said, there has to be repercussions, because otherwise you lose your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
It's seen as a sign of weakness. And
for sure. And that, everybody's looking for weakness, of course, in that world, aren't they? Okay, Richard, thanks you so much. We'll be back to you over the coming weeks.
Pleasure, Nicola. You look after yourself and take care.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.